Imagine inheriting your dream property, a sprawling 200-acre ranch in the heart of Idaho, complete with rolling hills, a crystal-clear creek, an old but sturdy barn, and a cozy log cabin your grandparents built by hand. You've just retired from a high-stress career as a federal agent, ready to trade city chaos for quiet mornings with coffee on the porch and evenings under endless stars. Life feels perfect, until one day, a sleek black SUV pulls into your gravel driveway, and out steps a woman with a designer handbag, perfectly highlighted hair, and a clipboard that might as well be a weapon. She introduces herself as the president of the brand new luxury HOA next door, and informs you that your entire way of life is now a violation. What she doesn't know is that the quiet retiree she's trying to bully is about to turn her empire of petty rules and fake authority into a federal nightmare. My name is Caleb Morrow, and after 22 years with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, I was done with the grind. The constant travel, the undercover ops, the paperwork. It had cost me a marriage and too many nights of sleep. When my grandmother passed and left me the family ranch outside Boise, I saw it as a lifeline. The land had been in our family since the 1940s. Zoned agricultural, no restrictions, no neighbors closer than a mile in any direction. Or so I thought. A developer named Harrington Homes had quietly bought up the parcels to the east and built Silver Pines Estates, an exclusive gated community with million-dollar homes, artificial lakes, and manicured everything. The woman who showed up that first day was Denise Harrington, wife of the developer, self-appointed HOA president, and apparently the queen of making other people miserable. She started politely enough. A welcome basket with store-bought muffins and a glossy brochure about maintaining community excellence. Then came the real reason for her visit. She pointed at my barn and said it was an unauthorized structure visible from Silver Pines that was detracting from property values. My chicken coop, empty at the time, was a potential health hazard. The split-rail fence my grandfather put up in 1963 was non-compliant with current aesthetic guidelines. She handed me a stack of violation notices and warned that fines would begin accruing at $250 per day per violation unless I brought everything up to code within 30 days. When I explained that my ranch predated their development by decades and wasn't subject to their HOA, she smiled that tight, condescending smile and said, "We'll see about that." First, I tried to ignore her. I had fences to mend, a garden to plant, and zero interest in neighborhood drama. But Denise wasn't the ignoring type. The notices kept coming daily, then twice daily. Certified letters threatening liens arrived. She started driving by slowly, taking photos from the road. Then the complaints began. Anonymous calls to the county about illegal burning when I cleared brush, reports of excessive noise when I ran my chainsaw during daylight hours, claims that my future livestock would create objectionable odors. I installed trail cameras just to document the escalating nonsense. Sure enough, they caught Denise trespassing multiple times, walking my fence line with a measuring tape, photographing my outbuildings, even scattering fake debris near the property line to stage evidence of blight. She recruited a few neighbors to join her crusade, and soon I had a small posse of Karens leaving passive-aggressive notes on my gate. The breaking point came when I brought home 6 laying hens and a rooster. Within hours, animal control showed up claiming multiple reports of animal cruelty and illegal poultry operations. The officer was embarrassed when he saw healthy birds in a clean coop, but the message was clear. Denise was willing to weaponize every agency she could think of. That's when I decided to fight back. Not with yelling or lawyers at first, but with the skills I'd spent decades honing. Investigation. As a retired ATF agent with friends still in federal service, I had access to databases and records most people don't. I started pulling public filings on Silver Pines Estates and the HOA. What I found wasn't just petty overreach. It was a pattern. Harrington Homes had used the same playbook on 3 other rural properties over the past 10 years. Create an HOA, elect a spouse as president, invent covenant expansions that supposedly applied to adjacent land, harass owners with fake violations until they sold cheap, then absorb the acreage into new phases of the development. But Denise had gotten sloppy. The Silver Pines HOA had never properly filed its annual reports with the state, meaning it technically wasn't a legal entity anymore. Yet she was still collecting mandatory dues, $600 per household per year, from over 120 homes. I dug deeper into the financials. Vendor contracts for landscaping, gate maintenance, and community events were all awarded to companies owned by Denise or her immediate family. Invoices were inflated by 40 to 60%, and payments were routed through shell accounts. Thousands of dollars were being siphoned off every quarter. Classic embezzlement. And then there were the forged documents, recorded amendments to the covenants claiming jurisdiction over surrounding properties, complete with fake notary stamps and backdated signatures. Denise must have sensed I wasn't folding like the others because she went nuclear. One evening, she marched up my driveway with 2 witnesses and demanded I remove my barn immediately or face legal action. When I calmly told her to leave my property, she pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and started screaming that I'd threatened her life and was reaching for a weapon. I stood perfectly still, hands visible, knowing my security cameras were recording everything. Sheriff's deputies arrived quickly. Rural areas don't play around with potential threats. Denise played the victim masterfully. Tears, trembling voice, the whole performance. She expected me to be detained on the spot. Instead, I invited the deputies onto the porch for coffee and showed them the live feed from my cameras. Clear as day. No threats, no weapon, just Denise fabricating a story. The deputies warned her about false reporting and left. But she wasn't done. A week later, she filed a federal complaint. Yes, federal, claiming I was running an unlicensed explosive storage facility on the property. A complete lie pulled from my old ATF career, which she'd apparently Googled. She sent anonymous tips to the ATF field office suggesting I was stockpiling illegal firearms. That crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I reached out to former colleagues. Within days, agents were quietly reviewing her complaints and noticing the pattern of fraud in her HOA. They looped in the IRS Criminal Investigation Division when the financial discrepancies surfaced. What started as me defending my ranch became a full joint federal task force looking into wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, and filing false statements with federal agencies. Denise's final mistake came at the annual Silver Pines HOA meeting. She'd scheduled a big presentation titled Addressing External Threats to Our Community Standards, complete with slideshows of my blighted ranch and calls for collective legal action against me. Over 100 residents packed the clubhouse. I wasn't invited, of course, but I showed up anyway, in a suit with my old credentials in my pocket and 3 federal agents seated anonymously in the back row. Denise took the stage, projector ready, voice dripping with righteous indignation. She displayed doctored photos, fake violation counts, even a forged county letter claiming my property was slated for condemnation. The crowd murmured approval. Then I stood up. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "before you continue, I'd like to clarify a few things." I introduced myself not as the cranky neighbor, but as retired Special Agent Caleb Morrow, and pointed out the federal investigators present. I walked to the front, plugged in my own thumb drive, and displayed the real records. Lapsed HOA status, embezzled funds, forged documents, false federal filings. The room went silent. Denise's face drained of color as residents realized they'd been paying illegal dues to a non-existent entity for years, and that their president had been stealing from them. When agents approached the stage with warrants, she tried to flee out a side door. She didn't make it far. Charges piled up quickly. Wire fraud, mail fraud, embezzlement, filing false reports, forgery, and conspiracy. Her husband lawyered up and distanced himself to save the company. But the damage was done. Silver Pines residents sued en masse. The development stalled, and the HOA dissolved. My ranch? Untouched, peaceful, and now with neighbors who wave politely from a respectful distance. Some nights I still sit on that porch with my coffee, watching the sun set over land my family fought to keep for generations. And I think about Denise serving time in a minimum security facility, probably still convinced she was the victim. The irony? All she had to do was leave me alone. But some people can't resist trying to control what isn't theirs. And when they pick the wrong target, they learn the hard way. Don't start a war with someone who spent decades learning how to finish one.